of starting a business and the wins that his team have accomplished. It's my pleasure to welcome Mark to the show today. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Tim. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, hey, let's have you introduce yourself. Tell us your full name as well as your personal story, like where you were born and live and about your family.
Okay. My name is Mark Clausman. My business is called the Sterlyn Group, which is a cybersecurity company. We'll get into that in more detail. But I'm from Indiana. I'm a Hoosier, born in Indiana, raised in Indianapolis in the Pike Township area, close to the Motor Speedway.
Mm.
So Indy 500 was a big time for us. It was always fun, always adventurous. We lived, close enough that we could hear what was going on and almost walk there. So it was good. And then my dad, growing up in the city, always wanted to live in the country. So at some point, we moved to Danville, Indiana, which is out in the country. It's corn country. And we had he bought a huge place with a creek and a woods, and
Oh,
he
wow.
grew his own garden. And it was great to learn about, there's other things to life other than city life. So
Yeah,
that was pretty much it.
very cool. So tell us about your stint at A&M.
Yeah. So I in the early 90s, I started working for Polygram Records, which is the owner of A&M Records here in Indy, with a good friend of mine who is actually the one of my business partners. And they had just bought A&M Records as well as Motown Records and a few other record companies, which it used to be Motown, Detroit, different parts of the country, but most everything was in Hollywood those days. So they asked me, "Hey, we just bought these new companies. We need to get you." Believe it or not, this is the time frame. We need to get them connected to the internet. You can tell it was a long time ago. They were somewhat connected, but they wanted to get it more standardized, more business approach.
Yeah.
Because A&M Records were doing their own thing, Motown was doing their own thing, Island Records were doing different type of networking, and they wanted me to help standardize that. So they said, "Hey, Mark, would you like to move to LA and work in Hollywood at A&M Records for a few years?" And I said, "Absolutely, I'm there." I had I was what I consider myself a youngster and had a Mustang convertible that I was ready to go. So I thought, yeah, I'll go on this adventure.
That's
So
awesome.
that's how I ended up in Hollywood for 3 years, living
Fantastic.
close to the beach and living the life.
Yeah, wonderful.
It was
So,
great.
Mark, is there a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share today?
Yes. Back when we lived in Danville, we had like a tri-level house, which those were popular in the 70s. And you had that lowered, sunken type of living room with a little stairway that went
Mm.
down to it. And as a kid, 10, 11, or whatever, I would, as I would jump rather than go down the stairs, I would jump to see how far I could jump. And, I guess I wasn't all that smart because, in a couple of years, I was growing quite a bit. So at some point, I made the jump and I hit my head on the ceiling.
Oh.
So I knew I was growing. So it was kind of the joke in our family that rather than taking a yardstick to measure our height, we'll just go with can you hit the Marx rule of if you hit your head on the ceiling, you're growing, but you're not getting any smarter. So that's one funny story.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. Hey, Mark, tell us how the business come about and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Well, it kind of goes back when I was at A&M Records in Hollywood. I was the manager of IT. I feel like I'm a musician because I play the guitar, but I really didn't get into that. I was the IT guy. I wish I could have said I was the A&R guy. I was the IT guy, and my job was to hire a lot of local contractors to help us with projects. Like getting the internet connected,
Mm.
getting they didn't have a whole lot of connectivity. They had A&M Records was part of the Charlie Chaplin lot, so we had to take some historic rules into place. We just couldn't go in there and rip things out. We couldn't rip out
Mm.
Charlie Chaplin's footprints in the cement to put in fiber connectivity. So I went through a lot of processes of hiring contractors, and we had to vet them and all that. And this one group we hired, they were a small business. They were a telecommunications business, and I got to know the owner quite well because they loved us because we were one of their first big projects.
Mm.
And I kind of, we'd go to lunch and I would talk about my dreams of owning my own business. And my big driving force was just plotting my own course. It's like, uh, I don't like I don't want to say I don't like, taking directions from other people, being told what to do. I thought, what? If I own my own business, I can tell myself what I want to do. So,
Yeah.
so I talked to this guy, and we had several lunches and discussions, and he kind of gave me the pros and the cons. Owning your own business, running your own destiny is great, but there's a lot of other intricate issues that go along with that. And he kind of talked about business plan. What is your business plan, Mark? And I said, well, I don't know. What is a business plan? So explain what that is. That you got to make money at this thing. It's nice to do something that you like to do, but you got to make money at it. So that was my first initiation of. I already had the dream, and then I got some advice from somebody else that had been living the dream.
Very cool. Awesome. Hey, Mark, tell us a little bit more about the company. What's the name? What do you guys do? How do you help people?
So I didn't finish. So continuing on that story, so my 3-year gig was up. Then I came back to Indy, working for a company called Nortel Networks. I don't know if you remember that. Used to be Bay Networks, big competitor to Cisco. And a good friend of mine, Jack, I don't know if we want to use his last name, but Jack, he helped me get the job at Nortel, and he kind of had the entrepreneurial thing too. He wanted to start his own business, so we talked about it for a long time, and times were good at Nortel until the dot-com bubble burst, and in like 2001. And when you're making a lot of pretty good money with great benefits and stock options, it's kind of hard to jump off that cliff and
Yes,
do
it
your own
is,
thing.
right?
It's risky. It's not like you can like dip your toe. Well, you could try in that, but you're not in it,
Yeah.
full force.
Yeah.
So we kind of got pushed off that cliff. So I got to flap my wings to see if I could fly rather than trusting that the parachute's going to work. Old saying, right? Can my wings work? So we decided to do that. Jack was one of my business partners, and coincidentally, another really sharp guy, very unique name, Lige, cybersecurity genius. And we didn't even know what we wanted to do. We thought, well, we want to do something in telecommunications. So he's a cybersecurity guy. Jack connected me with him, and we kind of all clicked, all three of us. So we decided, hey, let's start this thing. And I decided to call it Sterlyn Group. A short story about that is that sterling silver is like the highest quality of silver, but everybody has that spelling incorporated. I did some research, and in Old English, there's a Sterling Castle that's spelled the way I spell my company name, Sterlyn, that has the same meaning, which is the highest purity of quality, just like me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's why we went with the Sterling. It has the feeling of protection, castle, that type of thing. So that's how we came up with the name. And we decided to go all in on cybersecurity, and the internet was still kind of new, but we saw a lot of things coming down the pike. So we thought, let's do cybersecurity.
Yeah. So within that cybersecurity, how do you help folks?
So this was 2001, and like I said, the internet was still kind of new. There wasn't a whole lot of cybersecurity issues, although in 2001, the government announced the HIPAA regulation for healthcare, which has to do with securing and making private all of our healthcare information.
Right.
And that's a big deal. And we're hearing more and more about that every day with ransomware attacks and cybersecurity attacks, because PHI, personal health information, is worth a lot more to a hacker than even your credit card information, because personal health information has your credit card information, your address, your social security number, your kids' information. It's the general way to look at that. PHI, your personal health information, is worth about $1,000 on the black market, where a social security number is like worth, well, maybe $5. So you do the math. So a lot of government regulations came out focusing on regulatory, for banks, their version of HIPAA is GLBA, PCI payment card industry. So that was really helping drive our business, and it was all coming out fairly new. So people were kind of excited and nervous about all these new regs. So we jumped on the bandwagon with that. So that really helped us get going.
So what about today? What's the company focused on? How do you help people? Say, is it
Well,
the same? Is
there's
it
such
different? Has it evolved?
it has evolved, and I can tell you how much COVID involved it.
Mm,
Healthcare is the largest market share for our what we do. Maybe 70% because there's just so much. I mean, every day you hear about ransomware attacks
yeah.
and health systems, some local health systems that are down for like a weekend and they can't even they got to send some of their critical care patients away or
Mm,
they can't receive critical care
yeah.
patients
Yeah.
at that time. So and there's new things like I said, the hackers, it's a big target, it's a big money maker for international hackers.
Mm,
So we have a lot of focus on that. There are some new regs coming out all the time, and there's a new one called CMMC, and I'll call it HIPAA for supply chain DoD manufacturing, because for years they never had security controls for our DoD secret
mm,
information, and some of our enemies of the state have been stealing that,
yeah.
although we've been feeding them incorrect information, but still, so we're seeing an opportunity there. And the big change for us was when COVID hit. And as you may recall, when COVID hit, almost all healthcare, all hospitals kind of shut down regulatory compliance because they they were overwhelmed with COVID patients. They
Mm,
said, we're not going to worry about HIPAA, we're going to worry about saving lives. So we probably lost half of our clients when COVID hit,
mm,
at least temporarily,
yeah.
which out of every challenge, you can find an opportunity. The opportunity for us was to get all of our eggs out of one basket and diversify, which we kind of got into that CMMC, DoD, supply chain manufacturing, and plus a few other things, just changing the way we do our offerings. Typically, we do security risk assessments, which is like a once a year thing.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at more ongoing recurring revenue types of things where we do monthly, quarterly scans. Uh, when you do an assessment, a security assessment once a year, there's a lot of things that can happen in a year. So
Right, for sure.
these days, these hackers, every day they're pounding networks trying to find an input. So that helped us to diversify a little bit. So as you know, Tim, whenever there's adversity or a challenge, you can either fold or you can look at new
Yes.
opportunities that it provides.
Yes, indeed.
So that's kind of how we've changed over the years.
Awesome. Thank you. Mark, I'd like you to tell me a story or of where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, even though maybe you weren't sure that you could, and the impact that that person had on you.
Yeah, this is a good story. This was back, I went to Purdue. Sorry, all you fans out there, but you're kicking our butt in football and basketball, so you should be happy. But anyway, I I went to Purdue at Indianapolis at IUPUI. I was working and going to night school, and I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering technology. And the head of the department and one of my teachers was Dr. Richard File. And I took one of his classes, which it was microprocessor architecture. This is when microprocessors were still kind of new,
Okay.
computing's kind of new back I'm talking like early 80s. Okay. And he approached me after I was done with I got like a B plus in the class. And he approached me, he said, Mark, I think you would be a great adjunct. I don't want to say professor, teacher,
Yeah.
part-time teacher. And I said, oh, and I was very shy, very reserved, didn't have I lacked self-confidence. And I said, Dr. File, are you really sure that I can do it? Oh, Mark, I've seen you in class. You can do this. I will guide you every step of the way. So almost every week, preparing my syllabus and preparing my teaching notes, I would go to him, especially for stuff I didn't know. And he said,
Yeah.
Mark, yeah, you're good. Just do this, this, and that. And I said, I don't know, Dr. File. I don't know if I'm cut out for this. No, you can do it, Mark. You can do it. So he really gave me a lot of confidence, which I find, back then I'm in my 20s. So
Yeah.
I find that has helped me throughout my life to have confidence that, if you dig down deep, you can find the confidence and the intuition to do a lot of things that you think you can't do. So I thank you, Dr. File, if you're out there listening. Thank you for that.
Wonderful story. Mark, I'm sure you've experienced a lot over the years. What's been your biggest learning as a business owner?
That you no matter what size the business, even a small business, you need to know a lot about a lot of different things.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm focused on the growing the business and doing cybersecurity stuff, helping clients. Man, if you're a small business and you're the owner and I'm the president, I'm responsible for payroll, so I got to figure out how. I never took accounting,
Yeah.
especially business accounting is very complicated.
Yeah.
Accounting, HR, how do you deal with inboarding, offboarding? How do you deal with employees? There's a lot of weird. It's like having a family. Your business partners are like could be your spouse,
Yeah.
and the people that work for you are like your kids. So you gotta dance around carefully on each one. So all that, like I'm good at project management and account management, finding new clients. You might be busy running projects and finishing projects, but at the same time, you got to be finding new
Mhm.
projects. So you
Yes.
got to be prospecting and managing at the same time. You got to know accounting. You got to know business law, all the regulations going with that you have with a small business. So, but I found out that whatever you're not good at, it's better to focus on what you are good at and
Mhm.
grow that, and then outsource the other things that you maybe can't do as well. Like we hired a CPA
Yeah.
as a good example.
Yeah.
So, um, and there's other I don't know if we're going to talk about it now, but there's other collaborations I found too, as also as a small business that helps. Do you want me to dive into that
Yeah,
now?
sure. Well, yeah, go ahead.
So as a small business, we're small. We're like 4 people,
Mhm.
uh, and we're very niche. All we do are cybersecurity audits and risk assessments. We don't sell solutions, and that kind of made us unique too, because a lot of the other ones out there and some of our competitors, they will come in and do here's an example. It's sort of like the fox watching the hen house scenario, right?
Right.
If I come in and I do a security assessment and I also sell firewalls and I say, oh, we just did your security assessment and we found out that, oh, you need a current generation firewall. And by the way, I happen to have one of my
Yeah.
trusted to sell you. Then do you really trust the assessment?
Right.
So we
Yeah.
don't do that. We are fully independent,
Okay.
unbiased, third party. The results of our assessment, we have no skin in the game. So
Sure.
it may not be as cheap as an assessment you get from someone who's selling you products, but you got to keep in mind where are they making their money at,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
We are totally independent, so you can count. We may not be the cheapest in town for that
Mhm.
reason, but you're going to get a straight up, full, honest assessment of what
Yeah.
needs to be done. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how we're unique.
Very cool.
And so because of that, we will partner with I've been in the business for over 30 years in India. I know a lot of contacts that do things similar to us, but they're more of a product. They're making their money off the products. So we will partner with them and say, okay, you have a client that wants an independent assessment. We will do the independent assessment, and then you guys can provide the solution and the products to fulfill that. And that's their main bread and butter anyway. Our bread and butter is to do the assessment. Their bread and butter is to provide the solution. So those are great partnerships.
Yeah. Makes sense. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, Mark, and ask you to pick three people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for them being there to help with your business growth. Who are those three people and how they help you?
Okay. The guy I mentioned, Jack, and I don't know, he's retired now. I don't know if he cares if I use his name, but it's Jack Carr, previous owner of Lightbound.
Hmm.
He's the guy that I worked with at Nortel and at Polygram, and the guy that we talked about going into business together. He's one of my business partners,
Yeah.
and he played a big role in talking about it, and he had experience with starting another business, and that played a big role in just giving me the inspiration to and that camaraderie to
Yeah.
actually do it.
Yeah.
The other person is actually our third business partner, Lige. And that's a unique name. So, and timing's everything. He at this time in 2001, he was available. He had participated in a lot of startup businesses in telecom and cybersecurity. So he knew everything about, not everything, a lot of things about
Sure.
starting up a business, whether big or small. And he's a genius when it comes to cybersecurity, which is what we needed. So he was a perfect third partner. he gave me a lot of inspiration, not only on cybersecurity, I got a lot of knowledge from him, but also his approach to business and to life is very calm,
Mm.
laid back. I'm kind of a nervous type of guy, if you can't tell already, kind of like jumping around. I learned from him to be calm and in the face of adversity. When something seems bad, it's rarely as bad as it seems on the surface. So he provided some great inspiration. And then the third person is Tim Englehart. He's retired now too, I believe, and I hope it's okay if I use his name. I wanted to give a shout out to him anyway. At the same time we started Sterlyn Group, he was working for another cybersecurity company based in Indiana. So we were one of the first two.
Okay.
Yeah, so who else we're going to talk to? And he's a really good guy. And again, it was one of those collaboration things where they provided a service that we didn't do,
Yeah.
and he had been doing it for a while. So he helped. We partnered up unofficially, and he helped get my foot in the door with a lot of clients and kind of showed me how to do it.
Mm.
So I give a lot of kudos to Tim because he had faith in us, and for several years we combined on several projects that helped us really get going and get our foot in the door. So I would say those were the three.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. That's great. I love that, that there's people from all different areas that seem to have, come together and helped you guys to get to where you're at, and forming those partnerships, which, can be hard. So it's awesome to hear that it's worked out for you guys. Challenges. So what's one of the biggest challenges that you've had along throughout the years, and who's somebody that came alongside you and helped you through that?
Well, I think some of the things I mentioned is that, see, I'm not good at, we don't really do a whole lot of advertising. I've been in the business in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is a fairly small IT world. So
Sure.
I have a lot of people that I worked with that said, hey, I'm started this new business. Would you take the time to talk to me? And they were just doing it because they knew me and they knew that, I
Yeah.
provided pretty good services with my other company. So that was a big help. And then networking groups
Hmm.
and again, partnerships with other companies that were doing similar things, that were on the same page, that, got along. But also something I didn't mention, when HIPAA came out, there was the something called the Indiana HIPAA Work Group, which is a nonprofit organization. We get together once a quarter to
Okay.
share. It's a mind share there. It's not a
Yeah.
business networking group. We bring in expert speakers to talk about AI. We just had a meeting last week, and we had an expert talk about artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
especially in healthcare, and how it is and isn't working. And that's where it really was a great networking group, because I learned a lot about HIPAA. I'm the security chair for that group.
Mhm.
And I made a lot of great contacts. Almost all the local healthcare facilities in Indiana have participated in that group at one point or
Okay.
another. So it made a lot of great connections there.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like organic. I'm all about organic.
Uh-huh.
We never did a search engine optimization type of thing or anything like that. Maybe we need to. My challenge now is that, okay, we're in a little bit different world now. We're in the new century. We've been in
Mhm.
this new century 25 years. COVID changed things a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people using social media. I'm just tipping my toe and using social media to get my name out there. Things
Yeah.
like this will help.
Yeah.
Um, and so my challenge is, to kind of get up to date on new ways of getting the word out about the Sterlyn Group. I mean,
Yeah.
we already have a good name, but there's a lot more people getting into cyber. We're no longer the only cybersecurity company in
Yeah.
Indiana.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chains. There's a lot of companies coming in that are not even based in Indiana.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the challenge for us: is how do we get the word out? How do we do
Yeah.
some marketing? How do we leverage social media? How do I leverage the connections I already have? How do I leverage like the InSpin group? That stands for Indiana Security Privacy Network, by the way.
Okay.
It used to be Indiana Work Group. So how do I leverage, I did a presentation there at that event. How do I leverage that,
Mm.
those things to get more awareness about the Sterlyn Group and what we can do?
Yeah. So awareness in terms of priority for the next couple of years, it's that
Yeah, I'd
awareness.
say for the next 2-3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Because, yeah.
no, please go ahead.
Well, because like I said, it's new world. I think COVID was really the inflection point for us,
Mm.
probably for a lot of people, especially since we were heavily invested in healthcare, which kind of
Yeah.
shut down, and the use of like what we're doing now, Zoom calls
Yeah.
to do things. How do we leverage that to maybe get the word out more and just leverage it for meetings? And we're using it a lot now for meetings.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier a couple times, but yeah, COVID's definitely changed a lot of things for a lot of people, and some folks, they sort of put their head in the sand and said, "Hey, this is just going to be a month or so. We'll wait it out." And right, and unfortunately, it was a lot longer than a month or so. And others said, "Hey, this is an opportunity for us to pivot or reimagine and change our business," and came out of the other end a lot stronger than they went in with. So I like what you said earlier about, that adversity is a huge opportunity if we, embrace it and say, hey, how might I, pivot and shift and change and work through this as opposed to being, shut down by it and putting our head in the sand.
Yeah, pivoting, it's a worn out word, but I think that's key is how do you use this as an opportunity to pivot, which might turn out to be something even better in the long
Yeah.
run. So,
Yeah. And I love your focus on, hey, let's explore what can be different. What do we have to rethink? What do we and what can we embrace in terms of getting the awareness out more and leveraging the new technologies and the new environment. So,
right. Because up until I'd say till COVID, which was only 5 years ago, word of mouth was doing it for
yeah.
us for the most degree,
Sure. Yeah.
and all the networking groups I'm involved with and my collaborations and so forth. But the world is changing, and that's okay. That's the
Fair
world
enough.
changes.
Mark, last question. Jim Rohn said that we become the average of the five people that we spend the most time with. So, as you've already been talking about different groups and things you're involved in, but what advice would you have for newer business owners who are thinking that they need to do it all on their own and that they shouldn't or don't need to explore getting help from others?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a collaborative type of get input from as many people as you can. Now, for a good example, when I was considering starting the business, I did a training class where they gave you a test to see, are you an entrepreneur really? Do you have the mindset and personality? And I took this test. They said, as far as my big goal was running my own course, doing my own thing, not dealing with a boss all the time, and doing forecasting reports every day. So that part I scored well on. Who wouldn't, right? The part I didn't score well on was the details, such as all the details I talked
Wow.
about that are not part
Sure.
of the objective. There's so
Sure.
many details. And they kind of reckon, you know what? I don't think this is really for you, Mark, but sometimes you just got to go with your gut. My gut is like, you know what? I want to do this. This sounds like the thing for me.
Yeah.
I'll figure out all these other details after I go. And even a business plan. They talk about you got to have a very intricate
Sure.
business plan, which that works for some people. I tried to build one and they kind of said, oh, this stinks, Mark. Your business plan doesn't. But, well, okay, you know what? I'm just going to wing it. Sometimes you got to move forward, and if you make a mistake, that's how you learn. The quicker you make a mistake, the quicker you learn. So
Yeah.
I finally I took advice from a lot of people. I listened to the advice I liked and ignored the advice I didn't like. Kind of. You can't do that, but take it all into account. But do not rely totally on advice from other people. Go with what you know that you feel inside and think you can do. And if it doesn't work, so you know what you tried. Would you rather go through life thinking you could have tried something and didn't, or tried something and failed and moved on and figured something else out? So
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
Oftentimes, I tell clients that their gut already knows what they're supposed to do or should do. It's just a matter of figuring out how to hear it and listen to it and be ready to act on it. And usually our gut is a few steps ahead of our emotion and our logic. So everything has to catch up to what our instinct is telling us.
That's right. And I think that's part of when I went in to take that, this was a whole training thing where I took that test. I went in there just looking for validation of what I already thought I wanted to do. I didn't get that validation, so I just ignored it. It's always good to get validation, but you can't live by external validation. You got to go by inside gut sometimes.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. Mark, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people on your business owner journey. If they were all here with us today, what would you want to say to them?
I would say thank you. Thank you, Jack, Lige, Tim, Dr. File, the professor. Just all my, I have to say I was working at IPY for computing services at that time. That's where I really cut my teeth. The internet was brand new for IPY. My ex-boss there, Dave Gent, for 10 years, learned a lot from him too. So I want to give a shout out to him too. So it's all these things, these experiences in life that really makes our life. So a lot of people think, and I feel like I'm accepting an award at the Oscars. And I'd like to thank my family. Are you going to play the music? I'd like to thank my family, the ones that laughed at me for hitting my head on the screen. My brother Warren and Marcia and mom and dad. So anyway, I think I thanked enough.
Mark, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show. Please help spread this movement by liking and subscribing to our show and following us on Facebook and LinkedIn. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Please pay it forward and be sure to tune in next time to the Self-Made is a Myth podcast.